A major WWE superstar could be set to return this weekend at the Money in the Bank Premium Live event. Details on who that could be. Plus, WWE Creative is reportedly split on the outcome to the Bloodline match this coming weekend at Money in the Bank 2 between Roman Reigns teaming up with Solo Sikoa to face off against the Usos. Are some people within WWE attempting to Vince-proof storylines after the recent changes made by the WWE Executive Chairman? Baron Corbin returns to his lone wolf persona last night as he challenged for the NXT Championship against Carmelo Hayes. Nathan Fraser retains the NXT Heritage Cup. Rhea Ripley also appeared on NXT last night. A loser leave NXT match is set for next week. Gallus retains the NXT Tag Team Championship. Andre Chase returns last night on NXT 2. Plus, we have the ratings for this week's episode of Monday Night Raw. Grayson reveals he's currently been dealing with a broken leg, hence why he's not been wrestling. And Batista reveals he was set to be inducted into the Hall of Fame this year. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of World Wrestling Entertainment, and we are starting off with possibly a bit of a spoiler, so I'm going to give you a few seconds to skip ahead if you haven't already, because we are going to reveal who could be returning this weekend at the Money in the Bank Premium Live event in London at the O2 Arena. So I'll give you 5 seconds. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's give you the information that is being rumored, and again, it is just a rumor at this point, but could Randy Orton, the Viper, the Apex Predator, make his return this weekend at Money in the Bank? Well, of course, WWE is set to bring Money in the Bank to London's O2 Arena this Saturday, with many major matches set for the show. One of the matches is set to see Matt Riddle challenge Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship, with Riddle currently being outnumbered against Imperium. Riddle being outnumbered has led to speculation that Randy Orton may make his return to help Riddle alongside Imperium. In an update from WRKD Wrestling, Orton is reportedly expected to be nearing a return, which could take place as soon as this weekend's Money in the Bank event. Orton has not wrestled since May last year. He's not wrestled for over a year at this point, being out of action with a serious back injury that several had believed, or certainly have believed, that could end his career in the company. Orton's last match saw him and Riddle lose to the Usos in a Raw and SmackDown Tag Team Championship unification match. Another major name that WWE is hoping to have back in the fold come Money in the Bank is Drew McIntyre, who recently made his first appearance for the company since WrestleMania 39 at a recent charitable event. But the question is, will the Viper be in London this weekend? Let me know your thoughts on the rumor in the comment section below. Now, speaking of Money in the Bank, one of the biggest matches, and I guess the main event for the show, is the Bloodline Civil War between Roman Reigns, Solo Sikoa, and the Usos. With Money in the Bank taking place this Saturday in London, there are several big matches in place for the show. One of the biggest, and potentially the show's main event, is the Bloodline Civil War, pitting Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa against the Usos in tag team action. The match is the next major chapter certainly, in the ongoing Bloodline saga, and the finish of the show is reportedly a hot topic of discussion backstage. Per WrestleVotes, WWE has, quote, 2 very drastic finishes in play for the match, with creative seemingly, quote, split on the decision. The report also notes that the Usos and Solo were part of a run-through session last Friday at a closed location in order to go over things. Roman Reigns is set to return to SmackDown this Friday in London for the go-home show to Money in the Bank. There has also been discussion on who is set to walk out of London with the Money in the Bank briefcases, including who is looked at as a frontrunner to win. WrestleVotes tweeted, quote, hearing WWE has 2 very drastic finishes in play for the Bloodline matchup on Saturday. Creative seems to be split on the decision. In conjunction, I'm told the Usos and Solo were a part of a run-through session this past Friday at a closed location to go over things. So the question is, what are these 2 outcomes that creative are split over? Let me know your thoughts, your predictions in the comment section below. Now, there's been lots of stories recently, haven't there, about Vince McMahon making changes, his fingerprints being all over recent episodes of Raw and SmackDown, respectively. And according to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, WWE is attempting to Vince-proof some storylines and match bookings. How are they going to do that? Well, we'll go into details here, because Vince McMahon, as I mentioned, has been making plenty of changes remotely via phone, as well as in person at the June 5th episode of Monday Night Raw. However, there are some things that Fightful had heard he was quite particular about, but that didn't last for long. long. Those that Fightful have spoken to say McMahon generally likes to make good on the advertised matches if possible, even if they weren't his idea. Sometimes, though, there are some exceptions, and by and large, if it's advertised, they try and see it through. On SmackDown, there were a plethora of matches advertised on June 9 that those who booked it were hoping to see through. One source allegedly told Fightful that advertising matches on SmackDown 1, 2, and 3 weeks ahead of the show, on the same show, could have been an effort to, quote, Vince-proof some plans on SmackDown. However, the main thing that Fightful heard he made changes to on the June 5th Raw were match orders, match times, and some quick additional segments. The following Monday, on June 19, a world title match and a pivotal storyline moment and more were changed for the first 30 minutes of the show, with another match added. The following Friday, several matches were changed on SmackDown at Vince McMahon's request. SmackDown had not previously experienced heavy changes to the level Raw had for some reason. Ultimately, Fightful have been told that many of the matches that were promoted weeks ahead of time ended up happening, but Fightful were not told if there was any reason for that. Now, there must be said, there was reportedly a ton of frustration around several changes to last week's Raw and SmackDown episodes at almost every level of WWE, from talent to executives within the company. But it has been reported, and we covered this yesterday, that Vince McMahon's influence over creative is expected to continue to grow, particularly with the merger of UFC and WWE under the Endeavor umbrella concluding later on this year. And let's talk about some NXT, the main event of NXT last night. So the NXT Championship on the line. NXT Gold Rush is officially in the books after an intense bout over the NXT Championship. The closing contest of Week 2 saw Carmelo Hayes defend his NXT Championship against free agent Baron Corbin, who made his surprise NXT return on May 30, attacking Hayes from behind and setting his sights on Hayes' title. On Tuesday, the two finally met one-on-one. Upon his entrance, Corbin revealed the return of his Lone Wolf gimmick and his old Superhuman theme song. Corbin assumed early control of the matchup until Hayes nailed him with a code breaker. Hayes and Corbin then continued to battle back and forth. Corbin later appeared to be inching towards victory as he set up for an end of days, but Hayes ultimately escaped the move and sent Corbin flying into the ropes. Shifting momentum into his favour, Hayes delivered nothing but net to secure the pinfall and retain his NXT Championship. With Hayes' feud with Corbin seemingly in the rearview mirror, it remains to be seen who will face up against next, although there may have been a hint later on, or previously rather earlier in the show. We'll let you know what that was in just a second. But of course, it was having several titles on the line last night, and Nathan Fraser's time with the Heritage Cup will last a bit longer. On last night's episode of NXT, Fraser overcame former IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion Dragon Lee. Under the meticulous rules of the Heritage Cup, Fraser won the bout 2-1 in the 6th round. Fraser has been the Heritage Cup holder since June 13, when he defeated Oro Mensah, who was wrestling on behalf of the injured cup holder Noam Dar. Now, Fraser gave Lee the cup match last week, as Fraser felt he owed Lee for his help in fighting off the Metaphor. The match also brings the two competitors full circle, as Dragon Lee made his NXT televised debut with a victory over the aforementioned Nathan Fraser. Fraser is the 5th wrestler to hold the Heritage Cup, including initial champion A-Kid, now known as Axiom, current NXT Tag Team Champion Mark Coffey, Tyler Bate, and two-time cup holder Dar. The cup is a holdover from WWE's previous developmental brand NXT UK, and is now being used as one of NXT's regularly defended championships. So Nathan Fraser retained his title last night on the show. But we saw more main roster influence and more main roster crossover on NXT last night. Several main roster stars have made their return to NXT recently, and that trend continued last night as current Women's World Champion Rhea Ripley appeared in a backstage segment with Trick Williams and NXT Champion Carmelo Hayes. Later in the show, Ripley appeared briefly again, walking past a fallen JC Jane and calling her attacker, Lyra Valkyria, a badass. Ripley's NXT cameo comes just 24 hours after Hayes prevented her Judgment Day stablemate Finn Balor from smashing a chair over Seth Rollins' head on Raw. This, of course, led to Balor and Hayes battling in a singles match later on in the evening, marking Hayes' official Raw debut. It wasn't the first encounter between Hayes and Balor. Last week on NXT, Hayes and Williams thwarted Balor's attempt at nailing Rollins with the coup de grace, while Rollins remains grateful for their recent help. These actions don't seem to impress Ripley, as she issued a warning to Hayes and Williams. "The next time you boys want to jump into our business, you'll become our business," Ripley threatened during week 2 of NXT's Gold Rush special. As Ripley turned away, Williams reminded Hayes to keep his attention on his title defense against Baron Corbin, which took place later on in the evening. As Hayes turned his attention to Corbin, Balor will keep his focus on Rollins, who will challenge at Money in the Bank for the World Heavyweight Championship. So could this be leading to more main roster crossover, with maybe the Judgment Day appearing on more episodes of NXT moving forward? Now, next week, we're going to be getting a loser leaves NXT match. Next week on NXT, Diamond Mine is set to face off against the Dyad in a loser leaves NXT match. The challenge was made amidst a storyline of dissension between the Dyad, Jagger Reed and Rip Fowler, and Joe Gacy, the leader of Schism. The Diamond Mine's Creed brothers challenged for a match on Tuesday's episode of NXT, citing Schism's business as their business following Ava Rain's match with Ivy Nile, who is also part of the Diamond Mine faction. Schism had previously gathered in the ring for a family meeting that saw Reed and Fowler air their recent grievances against Gacy. The loser leaves NXT stipulation is certainly very interesting, particularly as it concerns Reed and Fowler. The former James Drake and Nathan Gibson both requested their release from WWE this past April but were denied. The tag team, previously known as the Grizzled Young Veterans, are set to become free agents this October. Despite their request for release, the team has consistently appeared on NXT programming. Next week's match announcement could herald WWE finally granting them their request and writing them off television, or it might herald a main roster call-up for the Creed brothers, who many were surprised to see go unselected during the recent WWE draft. So the question is, what do you think it's going to be? Are we going to see the Dyad leave, or are we going to see the Creed brothers get called up to the main roster? Let me know your thoughts about that. Now, speaking of tag teams, the NXT Tag Team Championships were successfully defended last night on NXT. Gallus once again retained the NXT Tag Team titles Tuesday night. During Week 2 of NXT Gold Rush's special, Gallus defeated Malik Blade and Idris Enofe to retain their titles. Channing Stacks Lorenzo was one of the factors that led to Gallus retaining the titles. After Blade tied up Wolfgang in the ropes, Lorenzo appeared while the referee was busy trying to free Wolfgang. Lorenzo tried to attack Coffey, but instead hit Enofe. The interference led to Gallus hitting their finisher for the win. Blade and Enofe earned the title match by defeating the team of Brooks Jensen and Josh Briggs and the newly formed duo of Hank Walker and Tank Ledger in a number 1 contenders match during Week 1 of Gold Rush. Gallus held the NXT Tag Team Championship since defeating the former champions The New Day in a fatal 4-way match at NXT Vengeance Day on February 4th. The other 2 teams were Chase U and Pretty Deadly. Of course, Pretty Deadly set to challenge for the undisputed Tag Team Championships this week on SmackDown. Speaking of Chase U, Andre Chase is back. The Chase in Chase U has returned. On Tuesday night's episode of NXT, Chase U's Thea Yale was unsuccessful in challenging NXT Women's Champion Tiffany Stratton. Following the match, Charlie Dempsey and Drew Gulak attacked Duke Hudson, overwhelming the Chase U strongman with their numbers, prompting Andre Chase to make his triumphant surprise return, helping Hudson fight off the terrible twosome. Chase had not been seen on NXT since a loss to Bron Breakker on the NXT Spring Breaking special at the end of April. Following the loss, Chase tweeted out a statement that seemed to be a goodbye to the developmental brand, writing, "It's been a hell of a ride," about his NXT run, followed by the quote, "New beginnings are often disguised as painful endings." Chase coming to the aid of Hudson against Gulak and Dempsey creates an interesting parallel between the 2 tandems, as both teams are longtime stalwarts of the American independent scene. Gulak being a former CZW champion, while Chase had tremendous independent success as Harlem Bravado, mentoring new talent. Chase and Hudson recently competed, albeit unsuccessfully, as I mentioned, for the tag team titles at the NXT Vengeance Day event. Let's switch gears and talk about the main roster, because we've got the ratings for this Monday's episode of Raw, the go-home show to Money in the Bank this weekend. Last week, Raw viewership returned to normal levels with the end of the NBA and NHL playoff competition, but this week, a monkey wrench was thrown into the mix with the deciding game of the College World Series on ESPN. Previously, Raw easily beat the College Baseball Championships, but the title-deciding game is a much bigger deal, so the question is, how did they do? Well, according to reporting from Showbuzz Daily, as well as WrestleNomics on both their Twitter and Patreon pages, the June 26 Raw averaged 1.973 million viewers overall across its 3 hours. Approximately 791,000 were in the key demographic, most valued by advertisers, that being adults aged 18 to 49. The latter figure translates to a 0.61 rating in the 18 to 49 demo, which earned WWE's flagship 2nd place among Showbuzz Daily's rankings of the day's cable originals, behind the College World Series, which scored a 0.85. Those numbers for Raw and the baseball game also beat out everything that aired in broadcast primetime on Monday, which topped out at a 0.40 for Claim to Fame on ABC. For a more extensive picture, the WrestleNomics Patreon page tracks how Raw did in various demographics in relation to the median of the prior 4 weeks' numbers. By that metric, all of the news was good, with only positive movements. The biggest percentage change came in male viewers aged 12 to 34, with a 46% increase increase over the median. Female viewers aged 12 to 34, meanwhile, jumped 26% from the median, trailed by adults aged 18 to 34 at 23%, women aged 18 to 49 at 19%, adults aged 25 to 54 at 17%, and total viewers at 15% too. Adults aged 18 to 49 and men aged 18 to 49 trailed with 12% gains over the median, with the remaining demos being within Nielsen's stated 10% margin of error. It should be noted that on Tuesday morning, Showbuzz Daily announced that the site will cease publishing TV ratings updates at the end of the week, so rankings may not be available starting next week. Among other sites that track TV ratings, it's not always clear which source Showbuzz Daily uses, so it's unclear what information will be regularly available beyond the WrestleNomics report, so we'll have to wait and see, but Showbuzz Daily is ceasing to exist, so the ratings might be a little bit more challenging to kind of disseminate in terms of other sources. Now, Grayson Waller has revealed that he's dealing with a broken leg. While Grayson Waller has remained a constant presence on SmackDown since being drafted to the Blue brand in the draft earlier this year, one thing he hasn't done is wrestle, instead focusing on his talk show, The Grayson Waller Effect. As it turns out, that's because Waller has been recovering from a pretty serious injury. In a recent Twitter video, Waller, clad in Jason Williams' Sacramento Kings jersey, revealed the injury and the severity of it. Quote, "My last match on NXT against Carmelo Hayes, I broke my leg," Waller said. "Clean break. But because I'm a straight-up gangster from southwestern Sydney, I kept going, and I was moments away from becoming NXT champion." After spending a considerable amount of time praising himself, his talk show, and promoting the appearance of Logan Paul on it on Friday, Waller then got down to business, providing an update, sort of, regarding when fans could expect to see him wrestle again. So the question is, when am I back? Waller said. Well, I have good news, but I have bad news. The bad news is, I don't owe a thing to you social media Fs. See, what I've learned from the last 8 weeks, all the pain, all the suffering, all the rehab, doing everything I could possibly do to make sure that when I got back, I'm in the best shape of my life. People online couldn't care less. The fans couldn't care less. They didn't celebrate the fact I was on SmackDown every week. They bitched and they complained because I wasn't wrestling. So I'm not going to tell you. But the good news is you're going to get an answer very, very soon. It's just going to be on my time because that's the Grayson Waller effect. So he's still recovering from his broken leg, but could be returning to in-ring competition very, very soon. Finally, Batista, the animal. When is he going into the Hall of Fame? Well, it could have been this year had scheduling conflicts not permitted it. A former WWE champion who was set for the 2023 Hall of Fame has been revealed, of course, ahead of the 2020 WWE Hall of Fame. Batista was set to headline the class for the event during WrestleMania 36 weekend. However, due to the global pandemic, the Hall of Fame was postponed to 2021. Due to prior engagements, Batista was unable to appear at the 2021 event as well. In March 2021, the animal stated, quote, "By my request, they have agreed to induct me at a future ceremony where I'll be able to properly thank the fans and people who made my career possible." The former WWE champion previously stated he wanted to get inducted when WWE came to Los Angeles for WrestleMania 39 weekend, but he wasn't able to do that, unfortunately. Speaking with Cool Kicks, Batista revealed that he was supposed to be inducted into the Hall of Fame this year, but he was filming a movie in South Africa and was unable to attend this year's ceremony. When asked if he had attended this year's WrestleMania in Los Angeles, the Hollywood actor said, quote, "No, I was in South Africa. I was supposed to go into the Hall of Fame, but I was on this film I was committed to. I couldn't get out of it." Later in the interview, Batista also revealed that he prefers acting at this point in his career, but admits there is nothing like performing in front of a professional wrestling audience. Of course, Batista lost his final retirement match to Triple H at WrestleMania 35 in 2019. So hopefully Batista can get inducted maybe next year in Philadelphia. But there you go, guys. This is the latest WWE news for you. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. A reminder, we are going to be playing AEW Fight Forever live here on the channel later today. So be sure to tune in for that. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.